As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. So, welcome to the Islamic Society of Leading American Muslim. And as all of you know, an organization that was established to do da'wah and to empower, nurture, and love, educate those people who come this way, whether they were born into a Muslim family or they became Muslim. I want to thank everybody that attended the potluck last night. It was a huge blessing. And though Thursday I found out about it, I was...
You did?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Why would we jump out and go surprise?
Well,
We had to because we were hoping that he didn't pick up on what she said, but we acted like
Yeah.
we just kept going with the conversation, and then
so what was really, it was actually funny though, because after she said it, if she had just dropped it, I would have been, oh, she's just asking. But she said, oh, I always spoil surprises. So when she said that, I said, well.
Oh, the lady. Oh, it wasn't you guys.
No.
it was so like I wouldn't even voice message Naran. I would be like,
Oh my God.
And I walked into the living room and Naran was ordering the food one day, and she immediately hung up. But I didn't pick up on it. I just.
No, we were there, and the lady said, "Oh, your birthday's on Saturday. We're doing something for you." And then it all became dead silent. And she was like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, was I not supposed to say like I'm
Oh my
bad
God.
at
Was that the same
She-
lady? Bless her heart. You can't remember.
So let me. Since it's 20 past, and as you guys want to be here all day, let me go and tell you some announcements.
His birthday, so he wants to teach a run.
Yes. No, I don't really want to run, but
I don't
Yeah.
blame you if you do. You gotta run.
okay, if you say so. So let me just make a few announcements, and I would like to ask everybody if there's any way you can possibly do this, and I know it would be difficult because of the timing, but on October the 1st, Naran will be co-starring in the Faith Club, and that will be at the United Church of Christ in Oxford. The address is 12514 County Road 101. It's been posted. It has been posted, so you can
Okay, I'll check.
You'll have that.
Email.
It's at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, so I know that that's probably difficult for most of you, but it would be lovely if you could come.
This is a Monday, sister.
Not tomorrow, the following Monday.
Yeah, I think that you would really enjoy the presentation, and it's a great opportunity to do da'wah, because after it's a very social community, because it's part of the villages actually, and so people have lots of questions, and you know. Naran and I have really dedicated our life to da'wah, and I encouraged her for years to play sport again, and now she's playing sports. So yesterday she played a game, and all the way there the people asked her about Islam, and then they thanked her for letting them understand Islam. And this is really da'wah, and this is why I encourage you to be your authentic, organic self. Do what you're passionate about and let people see your Islam. So I feel, you know, I really want Naran to play competitively. Of course, no, she will never be competitive, I'm sure. But yes. So I really do want her to play, because literally every time, and this is 5 days a week at least, or 6 that she's playing. Right? Yes. She comes home and she has done da'wah to someone, and people are learning. And
The telephone is still on.
oh, I'm so sorry, dear. Love you. I'll get it off. She's listening to my. How do I turn this off, you guys? Let's see. I'm trying to figure it out. Is that it, Halima?
I tried to get it down.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's my 93-year-old friend from Carmel, California. that called me to wish me, and so I was talking to her before you guys got here, and I didn't know she's listening to everything. So,
Well, she could have joined us for class.
yes, I think it would have probably, she can't hear well, so. Anyway, so I would love to encourage you, if there's any way you can go to the Faith Club, carpool, whatever you can do. I think it would be a great blessing. And when a group goes, then usually afterwards we go out to eat or something just for fellowship, and it's a nice evening. So if you can make that, please put it in your calendar. I will be at Eastern Florida State on October the 4th lecturing. I'll be here lecturing for Dr. Greenberg on Jerusalem and Islam from the Quran and from the culture on October the 17th. And then on October the 18th, I will be at the University of Florida, Gainesville, at the Stephen O'Connell Center for a large fast-a-thon. So we share what we're doing so that you make dua for us, that they are successful da'wah events, and that people hear about the true and peaceful message of Islam. And also so you know where, when you put money in the box, we're using it to do this stuff.
Is are any one of those open to the public?
I'm sure the fast-a-thon would be open to the public because they're expecting 800 to 1,000 people.
What about the Jerusalem one?
No, yeah, that's a private class, so yeah. So prayers and concerns. Susan Nelson, as you all know, is in hospice, but doing very well. She's begun to take some pain medication. But those of you who were there last night know that she made a video for the presentation, which was very sweet. I have a very special place for Susan because she is one of my oldest students, not as old as Maysoon, but one of my longest surviving students, I should say, in terms of years. And so when you've nurtured somebody for many, many years, your relationship with them is different from relationships you had in the world. And some of you may not know about this because you were born into this protected environment of Islam and Islamic communities. But for those of us who are reverts, it's really a very deep relationship. And as Susan said last night, we became her family. And so it was very special. Please pray for her. Jessica is not here today because her mom went to the hospital to get something checked out and ended up finding something else. It was very complicated, had a 4-hour surgery. And so Jessica is with her mom today, so please pray for her mom.
Do you want to mention the thing about talking meeting with hospice for Susan and about the dawah event that's going to come out?
Yes, Naren and I are Susan's health surrogates, but more really I've delegated that Naren pretty much handles all of that. And so she had a meeting with Susan's social worker this week, and with the group from Vitas. And they actually asked me, many of you may not know this, but for 8 years I worked with the chief chaplain of Orlando Regional Health Center, then now Orlando Health, doing end-of-life symposiums. So each year we planned a huge event at UCF where people got credits. Usually was attended by several hundred people, and I would we talked about end-of-life experiences. So this is one of my sort of areas of knowledge. And so Naran was sharing with them that I had done this and that I had been a consultant to Shepherd of the Comforter, is it called? Hospice of the Comforter. And so now they want me to make a presentation about end of life. So these, really I cannot express how many areas we are working at to do da'wah. And we just thank God that we have the blessing to do that with our lives, mashallah. So, any other announcements? Anybody else have a birthday besides me today?
It's your birthday, happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. This is the...
I was trying to understand all what you're saying.
Yes.
I thought maybe it's going not you.
Yeah, it's the little it's the 6-0 today, so...
I did a surprise potluck birthday to the group.
No, the email. She's saying she didn't know anything about it.
Oh.
What's in the email?
Well, I just arrived, so I didn't even check my emails for 2 days.
Yes, that's anyway. No more announcements. And alhamdulillah ta'ala. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسول الله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness there is no deity, there is no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. O you who believe, fear Allah as Allah alone should be feared, and die not except as Muslims in complete submission to Allah. Okay. O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord who created you from a single soul. From that Allah created its mate, and from them both dispersed many men and women, and fear Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights, and do not cut the relationship of kinship. Allah is ever and all watcher over you. And I think I left the last sentence of that out in Arabic. Alhamdulillah. So welcome again. Today we are covering Al-Raqeeb. And just to help the new Muslims here, I want to talk about this. When there is a moon letter, and if I say something wrong, you guys correct me, then it's not al, the direct article becomes ar. And then the shadda here makes it Al-Raqeeb. And the qaf, this is from qaf, comes from the back of your throat, ka. The ka sound comes a little more forward. So when you say this correctly, it is Al-Raqeeb. And it's a long vowel, so it's Al-Raqeeb. Okay? So if I didn't do it right, I expect that the Arabs in the room will correct me. Okay? Because I am, that's your duty to me to correct me when I ask you to correct me. So, alhamdulillah, here are some definitions that are found regarding this. Try a little root. The watcher, the all-observing, the witness, the watchful. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking that there is a 7 to 8 hour period for most of us. Of course, I know there are people that sleep 4 hours a night and 5 hours and stuff, but for the sake of understanding, for about 7 hours of the night, we don't watch anything. We're dead, actually. Our souls go to Allah, and we're unaware. But our Lord is never, ever asleep and never rests. He's always vigilantly watching us. The all-observing, the witness, the watchful. The one who watches all things, the one who is the ever-vigilant witness, the one from whose observation nothing is hidden, the one who observes all thoughts, deeds, and feelings. From the root ra, qaf, ba, which has the following classical Arabic connotations: to look, watch, be vigilant, to expect, anticipate, await, to keep an eye on, detect, observe, to be mindful of, to be a spy, scout, observer, and to regard, hold in consideration, respect. And of course, this is one of the names that is used in the Holy Quran. In Surah An-Nisa, verse 1, O mankind, reverence your guardian Lord who created you from a single person, created of like nature its mate, and from them twain scattered like seeds, countless men and women. Reverence Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights, and reverence the wombs that bore you, for Allah ever watches over you. And this verse should be very familiar to you. Why? It's in the khutbah al-hajjah, the khutbah of necessity, that the Prophet ﷺ recited at every single lecture that he gave. It was just the way he started. So when you hear me in Alhamdulillah Ta'ala Nahmaduhu, this is the khutbah of necessity. So this is part of that. And what's really interesting, Salaam Alaikum, welcome. What's really, really interesting is that when you look in this verse, and I wish I could do this justice in the Arabiya, this original seed, it doesn't sort of address it in the terms of male and female. So there's actually gender equity in this verse. If you read it from the Arabiya, it's quite beautiful. And maybe one day I'll have the blessing to be able to break it down for you, to see the beautiful Arab, the beautiful etymology of this word and the morphology of this word. I can break it down on paper like statistics, but I don't yet have the ability to articulate it. But when you see these things, it speaks to the inner dimension and the deeper meaning of these verses. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 117, never said I to them aught except what thou didst command me to say. Worship Allah, my Lord and your Lord, and I was a witness over them whilst I dwelt amongst them. When thou didst take me up, thou wast the watcher over them, and thou art a witness to all things. So here you see we are talking about someone being taken up to Allah, and we are being made aware that in our living and our dying, from the time we are born on the fitra of Allah to the time we die, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never takes Allah's eyes off of us. Not once. We are never alone. Allah is always with us, no matter what we are going through. And if we remember Him, He will remember us. So we will be aware of the divine presence. But if we are not remembering Him, and this is why dhikr is so important. And of course, what is the best dhikr? The reading of Quran. The second best dhikr is remembering Allah, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. So, La ilaha illallah, but dhikr. So remembering Allah, then you will become consciously aware that Allah is watching you. Even when you do good deeds, and we'll talk about this more later on in the lecture, when you're doing good deeds with the intention to please Allah, then you are aware of Allah. And in that sense, you are in the divine presence of Allah because you are connected to Allah. But when we forget Allah, what do? We find that we do things that we might not do if had remembered Allah, inshallah. The Great Names of Allah by Al-Sayyid Rashad Al-Masawi. Some reflections from that classical writing. And one of Al-Raqeeb is one of Allah's great names. And the divine is a witness who is never absent from the scene. So no matter what the scene is, Allah is fully aware. And then in His magnificent and bountiful mercy, He forgives so much. But yet He is aware. What happens when we are aware of something? When we are aware of it, if our egos are activated, we hold it over people. And it's like people are afraid. They are paralyzed by the fact that we know something. We were a witness to something. And if we are a Muslim who they are safe from our tongue and hands, then they will not be afraid that we will use what we witnessed against them. And this is when we talk about realization and materialization of these great names. These are the way that we realize them. These are the way that we actually let people see the attributes of our beloved Messenger and our Lord. In language, one who is Raqeeb is one who keeps vigil, the guard who stands to protect and guard them. So how well do we keep vigil of our soul? Aware before we engage this, are we guarding our soul? Because what happens is when we are unaware of Allah, we tend to engage this And this does a lot of damage. And this, obviously, I'm talking about the tongue. And then how do we keep vigil over our hearts? Constantly being aware of my state, my hal. We are unconscious, somnambulistic. We are walking in our sleep. We are unaware so much of the time. But if we are the watcher, if we can't be the watcher, but if we are watchers over ourselves, then what would that do to our iman? Strengthens and increases us in iman. In the army, the Raqeeb is the one who is in the vanguard. So the one in the army who is a good watcher becomes the colonel, becomes the highest ranking official. Why do they become the highest ranking official? Because they can be depended on to be aware of what's going on in that war. And isn't it interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us all in a war? He said the greater jihad is the jihad of the nafs. Every one of us in this room, if we want to have a healthy spiritual experience, we will declare war on ourselves. We will declare war on our nafs, so that we be conscious of our whims, our impulses, our compulsions, and our lower desires. This is Raqeeb. When you are looking for how do I incorporate the understanding of this in my life, this is part of that. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, safeguard Muhammad in his household, meaning safeguard his name and honor it. So do you see how here the Prophet ﷺ is even telling us part of safeguarding your community is that you protect and honor the names of people in your community. And this is why namima and ghiba, gossiping and tale-bearing, is so dangerous and so destructive, and in the Holy Quran compared to cannibalism. Eating the flesh of your brother or sister. Raqeeb also means, interestingly enough, offspring. And this is one I want to ponder more about. Because how much do we have to watch our offspring? It's all encompassing. So when you have a baby, you cannot be unconscious. I mean, ideally. It happens now and then. But ideally, that baby is completely dependent upon you to watch it, to keep vigil over it. And of course, we know that with the first child, we are hypervigilant. Yes? We're so worried that the baby's going to, have a little something in the diaper for more than 1 minute. But by the time you have 2 or 3 or 4, you say, well, I'll get to it in 1 minute. But it can be a minute. But the first one, no, not even a minute. So we can learn from the experience of life about being watchful. It also conveys the meaning of one waiting or keeping vigil. So it's interesting, we find in the Bible a verse that says, wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. So what are we waiting for? Well, think of it in terms of being a waiter. We're serving the Lord. That's how we wait on Allah. We give Him what He wants. So Farida works at a great Thai restaurant. When people come there, they want her to give them what they want. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to give Him what Allah wants. The angel who writes down what we do and say is called Raqeeb. Why? Because that angel is watching. This is where I'm supposed to be, right?
Yes, right.
Yes, okay. Okay, thank you, yes. The angel who writes down what we do and say is Al-Raqeeb. So what do we know? The angel on the right side is writing down all of our good deeds. They have to be super observant to keep up with them. We couldn't even keep up with them. sometimes. And on the left side, he's writing our bad deeds. Inshallah, he's on the way to the unemployment office, that angel. And forgive me for calling the angel he, but the angel. Try to get away from this he, she thing. In Surah 50:18, he does not utter a word except that there is by him a watcher at hand. We do not say a word that those angels don't catch. Imagine if we were that vigilant toward our own spirituality, that we didn't say a word that I'm not aware of how that might affect my iman. It's pretty intense, isn't it? But imagine that. Imagine evolving to that level that we didn't say a word, that we were unaware. And when we get angry, what do we say? I don't even remember what I said. Right? Has anybody ever been that angry? Well, maybe you shouldn't answer that. That's too much like confession. Al-Raqeeb is the one who truly ever watches over us, is, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One who is Raqeeb regarding Allah is one who acknowledges that Allah oversees whatever we do and say, so he or she observes his or her duties toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Al-Raqeeb is the one who knows our conditions and counts our breath. This kind of awareness. There's a lot of research about this. Some of you in this room right now are not breathing. This is just based on research. When we get tense, what do?
You hold your breath.
We hold our breath. We actually are not breathing. But how many of us are conscious of it? Not many people. But I become conscious of it, but I don't catch it every time. And I'll say, gosh, Abdul Rahman, you're not breathing. Particularly when it's like, I'm not breathing. So just imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is keeping up with every single person here when we stop breathing and when we breathe. Counting them. That's how much He loves us. Or Allah loves us. Al-Raqeeb is the one who never laxes nor forgets, who is always present and is never absent, who knows everything and nothing regarding the conditions of the Divine's creation can ever escape from the Divine's knowledge. So you know how sometimes, and particularly the married couples in the room, know that sometimes we aren't listening. We say we're listening. We can repeat everything the person said. But the person doesn't feel heard, right? Anybody ever experienced this in your life? Of course not me. I have a perfect marriage. But but think about it. Here we are married, and yet part of the human condition is that sometimes we are not there. We are standing there, but we're not there. But our Lord is always there. Always listening. Waiting for us to supplicate. Al-Raqeeb is the one who manages the affairs of the divine servants, who knows what they say, who watches the divine servants, who observes what they do, who is familiar with their innermost thoughts, and nothing at all escape the Divine's knowledge. So, you know, as husband and wives and really good friends, sometimes will say, I know exactly what you're thinking. Oh my God, how dangerous would it be if they really did? But we say this. We say, I know exactly what you're thinking. But we don't. And if we test the reality, we'll quickly find that we are not the watcher. We don't have that capacity. So we then make assumptions. And if you break that word down into 3 parts, you will find out what happens when you make an assumption. I won't go into it today. Narrating the story of Isa A.S.A.L.A.M, the son of Miriam, peace be upon both of them, The Almighty quotes Isa a.s.A.L.A.M. saying, "But when you caused me to die, you were the watcher over them, and you witness all things." And this is from the Quran, chapter 5, verse 117. The Almighty also said, "And Allah is watchful over all things." Surah 33, verse 52. So imagine that when we just are processing in the moment Allah's awareness of us. We are not thinking about His awareness of every leaf, and when a tree every tree, and when a leaf falls from that tree. His awareness of how many ants are in an ant heap, in all the ant heaps in the world. His awareness of the microscopic things that you and I cannot see. His full awareness. There are two viewpoints explaining the meaning of Al-Raqeeb. And the first one is linguistically, the Almighty is the one who safeguards things, watches over them, guards them, who is free of any oversight or negligence, taking care of everything and safeguarding everything. We miss pieces. We miss a beat here and there, often as humans, part of our condition. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala misses nothing. What if we were that vigilant in our practice that we endeavored not to miss anything that Allah wants from us? Imagine that. May Allah make us to be of those people, inshallah. The Almighty has said, He does not utter a word except that there is by Him a watcher at hand, meaning an angel who records his deeds and takes note of everything he says and does. While Allah, glory to the Almighty, is who looks after them and who knows their conditions and what they utter. Everything you say, He's fully aware of it. As regarding seeing, awareness in terms of vision, Allah is saying in Surah 20, verse 46, "Surely I, Allah, am with you both. I hear and see." Sometimes we will hear the siren and we will say, "Oh, there must be a fire. There must be an ambulance." But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He hears and sees. So we are missing data. In the human condition, we are missing data. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has full data. Regarding knowledge, it is the Almighty's saying, Allah knows what every female bears, and that of which the wombs fall short of completion, and that in which they increase. Surah 13:8. The Almighty knows what goes down, deep down into the earth, and what comes forth out of it. So imagine that everything we cannot see. So what's the first thing that we ask a pregnant woman, usually? Besides, are you having morning sickness? Well, we will say, is the baby moving yet? Right? Are you getting kicked yet? Am I right? For you women that have had babies, is that one of the first questions you're asked?
Usually, when are you due?
Yeah? Yeah. But how many people want to feel a woman's stomach when the baby's kicking?
Everyone.
Yeah, there's something amazing. I always think pregnant women are the most beautiful women in the world. They have a glow about them, even if they're throwing up every morning. They still have a glow. And so I used to just love it when Naren was pregnant, because I just thought that was the most amazing and beautiful thing in the world. She didn't think so, but I did. So I was keenly watching this whole pregnancy. So think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows every single thing that's going on in the womb of the mother. How it's growing, how it's decreasing, whatever is going on. He sees and He hears it. Everything that goes into the earth. So think about acid rain. So when it's raining, all kinds of things are going into the earth. When we pour stuff out into the earth, so those people who throw away their oil and you shouldn't do that, and put it on the earth that Allah gave us in a perfect form, He's aware, oh, they're contaminating this perfect earth I gave them. It is phenomenal when you think of this. We don't even think about it. Only in the last, and you might can help me here, Omar, how many years have they been telling people don't put oil in the drains? 15 or 20 years, okay. How many of us are aware of that you should not pour oil into street drains? Yeah. Because it contaminates the water, and of course that goes into the earth and it contaminates the earth. So Allah is aware. He sees that. Is that a question or just a stretch? The other viewpoint says that this word is derived from I.S.L.A.M, which means waiting. Allah Almighty has said, "Wait therefore, surely they too are waiting," in Surah 44:59. Such a viewpoint is impossible to accept. It is rejected on the ground that one who waits for something needs to reach its commencement, desiring to find out its outcome. So this is where Imam Ghazali argued that this could not be a valid definition of Al-Raqeeb. The correct meaning of this latter verse is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants servants to reach out to the Almighty, to make the Almighty the goal of their adoration, submission, and humility. I should just give this to somebody else. Al-Raqeeb then is the witness who is never absent. Do you mind?
Sure.
Okay. Imam Al-Ghazali dedicated a complete chapter dealing with this subject in volume 15 of his book, I.S.L.A.M. And this research filled 15 pages. So when I teach you a class about one of the asma wa sifat of Allah, I am really just touching the tip of the iceberg. And I've had a number of students to say to me that these classes have been so perplexing for them, that they have been very deep for them. And I just say to you, the magnificence, the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that we are only, I promise you, touching the very tip of the iceberg in what we are learning and what we are embracing in terms of our understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And interestingly enough, when I was studying Islam, about I think it was the fourth set of books, or fourth book, I'll call it a book because there are 4 volumes now, was Imam Ghazali's Ulum-ud-Din. And it was totally by divine intervention. I went into a spiritual bookstore in West Hollywood, California, known as the Bodhi Tree, featured in Out on the Limb by Shirley MacLaine. And what did I buy? I bought Imam Ghazali's books and probably read them once a year. And therefore, I think that's why my position, and often I talk about Imam Ghazali so much when I'm teaching. Imam Ghazali supports his view regarding the one who watches himself with one tradition wherein the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, ihsan, and I put here goodness, and I don't really like that translation, goodness. Ihsan to me is spiritual excellence. I think that's a better meaning, explanation of this word. And we are all supposed to be striving for ihsan. We will never get to ihsan until we are watchful. Unless you are watching what you do very carefully, you're not going to improve what you're doing because you're not conscious. So in order to ever reach ihsan, you must develop Raqeeb in your soul, a watchfulness, a vigilance. Ihsan is that you worship Allah as though you see Allah. For if you do not see Allah, Allah surely sees you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supports his view that Imam Ghazali supports his view that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Raqeeb over the Almighty's servants by the verse saying, does he or she not know that Allah does see? In Surah 96, verse 14. In this verse, if you are contemplating and reflecting then you will become aware that Allah is reminding you that I'm seeing you. You need to see me. You need to be in touch with me. You need to be connected with me. You need to remember me. It is narrated that Abdullah ibn Umar once passed by a young slave tending sheep and pointed to an ewe and said, "Sell me this ewe, young shepherd." The young slave told him it was not his, therefore he could not sell it. Whereupon Ibn Umar said, "Tell its owner that a wolf ate one of his sheep." He answered him by saying, "Then where is Allah?" Ibn Umar was very impressed by his answer, so he bought the young slave and set him free. Then he bought the herd and gave it to him as a gift. So these are the watchful people. The watchful people, no matter what you test them, no matter what the whisper of the shaitan, they are wide awake and aware, and they will remind you, where is Allah? Imagine if someone began to gossip to you and you said, where is Allah? What a beautiful way. Instead of saying, Astaghfirullah Azim, how can you talk about people? The Prophet said, cover the faults of your brother and sister. And of course, by that time, you're going to get defensive because you've been attacked. But imagine if just beautifully you said, where is Allah? Yes.
This is the son of Omar. Omar, the father, used to wander the town, and one day he found a poor girl, and the parents asked her to water the milk. She was milking and put water so it'll sell more.
Yes.
And Omar heard it, and the girl refused. So he picked her as the wife of
Yes,
Bella.
that's right. I had forgotten that. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Since then, the son of Omar kept repeating, then where is Allah, quite often. So he learned. He took the lesson of Al-Raqeeb and he made it part and parcel of his life to always be asking, where is Allah? What a beautiful methodology of learning. What a beautiful implementation. It is one of the good practices of a believer towards Allah, Al-Raqeeb, to keep in mind that Allah ever watches over him or her and sees whatever he or she does. He or she knows that his or herself is his or her nafs, is his or her enemy, and that the accursed Satan too is another, and that they both seize every opportunity to make him or her lax and disobedient to his or her Lord. Therefore he or she must always be on his or her guard, closing all the gaps and avenues in which he or she may fall. This is the watchfulness that we have to have if we want to evolve spiritually. If we want to be, as I spoke about last night in the halakha, agencies of change. If we want to be people of good conduct, people that influence people around us in a positive way, we have to be watchful. And it's real interesting because I was sharing with Laith this week. I was talking to Laith, and I was at a party, not a party, just a dinner party. And typically I'm consciously having sort of something I want to talk about, khutbah, halakha khutbah, something, but that we make sure that we praise Allah. And we did bring up Allah's name, but I was not as watchful as I usually am. And it deeply disturbed my soul. We had some conversation around some interesting issues, marijuana being one of them. And I just found myself really, I actually felt guilty. I felt ashamed. I was aware that I had not serviced my soul well. And I don't share this to glorify the shaitan. I share this with you because I am human. As hard as I am striving to be close to my Lord, I am fallible. and I blow it right and left. And so we were having this. I was having this conversation with Laith, and I was actually saying, forgive me because I feel that as your teacher, I was not watchful.
To his defense, we talked about Allah, but it wasn't like a structured lesson, halakha type format.
Yeah, and I don't need to be defended. Allah is my defender. Allah is my defender, and I know that Allah forgives me and welcomes me and loves me despite my weaknesses. But I deem by Allah, and I pray that my sharing that with you is not in glorification of the whisper, but in encouraging you to be on the fight, to be on the prowl, watching how easily you can be brought off center. It is also one of the good practices of a believer in this regard to watch him or herself and his or her senses, to keep vigil, and to make whatever he or she does solely for the achievement of the pleasure of his or her Lord with a pure intention, and to observe his or her obligations toward his or her Muslim brother and sister, and not expose his or her faults to others. It is so encouraging when people have mercy on you, isn't it? How many people like somebody to walk up to you and say, don't beat yourself up. God is merciful. Or would you rather, hey, astaghfirullah, and with this condescending, castigating, critical look? How many grow? How many are nurtured by that? How many of you, your iman increased by astaghfirullah? Did anyone? I'm serious. I'd like to know if that encouraged anyone toward ihsan. How is that beautiful words and eloquent speech when it is said to you and your soul cringes? Like, oh my God, crucify me. In Reflections from Allah, an explanation of the divine names and attributes by Ahmed ibn Ajiba al-Hassani, the name Al-Raqeeb is similar to the name Al-Hafiz. And remember, we covered Al-Hafiz. Imam Ghazali said the name Al-Raqeeb is more particular in meaning than the name Al-Hafiz, because Al-Raqeeb is the one who looks after something to the point of never forgetting it in the first place, and who observes it with a constant and persistent gaze, so that if one to whom it was forbidden knew about the surveillance, he or she would not approach it. So what is this saying to us? If we were conscious of Allah being Raqeeb, Al-Raqeeb, then we will never go near that thing. So the very fact that we go near these pieces, these things, these temptations, means that in that moment we do not know Al-Raqeeb. Does that make sense to you? Okay. It is as though this name refers to knowledge and protection together. But with regard to its being constant and persistent, it added to there being something forbidden and protected from access. His statement, if one to whom it was forbidden knew about the surveillance, he or she would not approach it, means that the real exalted is Allah, is intrinsically aware of all things. So Allah, when you think of Allah being intrinsically aware, it takes it to another level. We know that Allah is all-knowing, but then when Allah says He is intrinsically aware, it is exaggerated. And what we know about the Arabic language, and Jonathan Brown so beautifully points this out in his book, misquoting Muhammad, is that the Arabic language is very exaggerated. And if you don't know this, you can take things literally and it's sort of scary. But it's the reason that you cannot whisper in Arabic, can you? Try to say Khalid and whisper. But if I say John, did everybody hear what I said? John, Betty, Sue, Bob, Khalid.
So different.
So that's a compliment. Why, look, the Arabs before Islam were the greatest poets. The honor was to be able to project this and have your poetry stapled on the Kaaba. So this, to this day, I never cease to be amazed that an Arab will not need any of the accoutrement that I have. They will give a speech about this and they will memorize the ahadith that I share with you. They will memorize the Quran that I share with you, and they will wax eloquent in this exaggerated, beautiful language. And I think this is why, one of the reasons why Arabic speaks to the heart of someone like me who has a very, very foundational understanding of the language and makes me cry. Because it is so exaggerated that it just takes you there. You don't have to work hard. It just takes you to the very core of what is being talked about. Had the servant truly known and realized with his or her heart that Allah is ever watching over him or her, that he or she, out of awe and shame before the Most High, would never commit a forbidden act or come near one. So if you want to get to a space in your life where you are not committing forbidden acts, I would recommend that you take note cards and put Al-Raqeeb at every door that you walk through. And I'm being very serious. If you really want to become aware of how close Allah is to you, closer than your jugular vein, look at the intensity of that. When we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the watcher and recognizing that He is closer than our jugular vein, this is very intense. It's very exaggerated in the most beautiful of ways. One who knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Raqeeb, watching over all things, will be vigilant of Allah in all things, and will not turn to other than Allah in anything. Acting in accordance with Allah's words, and Allah is a watcher over all things, does not leave anything out. Attention to every single detail. And this is from Surah 33, verse 52. When we connect with this name, Assalamu alaikum. Connect with this name by striving to seek closeness to Allah. A closeness that engenders shyness. And let me say this to you, because a lot of times parents will apologize for a shy child. They say, oh, they shy. And then what would we remind them? That shyness is one of the signs of Iman. That shyness is good. We don't want our children to be shy, and then when they get in high school and they're not shy, what do we want? We want them to be shy all of a sudden. We tell them, show off. Oh, recite this, recite that. Show off for mom and daddy, puppy on the street. But when they get older and they start showing off, what do? Pipe it down, take it easy. Yes or no? A closeness that engenders shyness, awe, and magnification, obliteration, and effacement, such that you say with the tongue of humble entreaty and supplication, O Al-Raqeeb, grant me your watchfulness. What will prevent me from disobedience, and grant me of witnessing your closeness? What will drive away the causes of obliviousness and neglect? Everybody should take a picture of this slide. This should be a dua that you make every day. Thank you. What a dua. What an awareness. What a watchfulness that we would pray this dua. Cultivation of this name in one's character. Next slide, please. It's all right. Cultivate this name in your character by maintaining constant vigilance over your ego, your heart, and your innermost secret. You should suffice with the Almighty's knowledge in all circumstances. Cultivate this name in your character by carefully supervising those whom Allah has ordered you to look after, such as your family or others. Since the Prophet ﷺ has said, each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his or her flock. What a beautiful analogy. For who in here actually ever met a shepherd? Okay, I would have thought maybe you being from Egypt might have met a shepherd. Or you never met one in Philistine? Wow.
I only met like ones in North Carolina.
Okay. The shepherd is so watchful that the shepherd does not sleep. The shepherd knows the personality of every member of its flock. So the one sheep that doesn't hear good, he trims the ear so that he hears. The one who's a little wild and wants to jump off the cliff, he stays close to that one. Or she. I don't know if there are any female shepherds. I'm sure there are. But these examples that Allah and His Messenger gave us are so crystal clear. The shepherd will risk his or her life for those under its care. Unbelievable. Study, just think about being a shepherd for a moment. It's cold out there. The nights, I believe, in Philistine are very cold, right? Yeah, can be very cold. And they're out there, and all they're doing is watching their animals, so the wolf doesn't get them. Who is the wolf in our life? Our ego, our arrogance, the world, the dunya. They are the wolves that are ready to attack us. And we are to be a shepherd. We are not only making sure that I don't get attacked, that we don't get attacked, but that my brothers and sisters don't get attacked. And how beautifully are we doing that when we cover the faults of our brother and sister? MashaAllah. Realization of this name. You will realize this name when vigilance is so firmly entrenched in your heart that you become a locus of theophanies. And theophanies, I'm going to break this down, are when you actually see Allah. You see Allah. Now, obviously, we cannot physically see Allah, but you see Allah in everything that you see. So when I'm standing here, if I want to see Allah, I just think about all the beautiful trees that made these doors. And I think about this drywall and how earth that I'm made of is somehow put into this boards that make this beautiful room that I can paint any color I want to. Well, not here probably, but in my home I can. But you see Allah in everything. The Afanis in the Sufi world is called Tajalliyat of the Lord. After which this vigilance moves to others, and you watch closely over the secrets of those who turn to you or connect with you. And look at the meaning of this that's so beautifully exemplified when we say a Muslim is one in whom you are safe from his tongue or hands or hers, and a mu'min is one in whom you can entrust your life and property. So I can come to you and I can tell you my deepest pain. and no one will ever hear about it. Because I'm watching over you, and I'm watching over me violating my trust with you. After which this vigilance moves to others, and you watch closely over the secrets of those who turn to you or connect with you. As Sheikh Abu al-Hassan al-Shadili said, a sheikh will not be a sheikh until his or her hand is with the hand of the needy disciple wherever he or she goes. So that many people today, they send out a flyer and they shake this, shake that. Chocolate shake, vanilla shake, strawberry shake. But then we find that sometimes those shakes, when someone doesn't have money to donate to their cause, they are not a sheikh by this definition. But if the sheikh is truly a shepherd, he or she is connected to their flock, and they truly concern themselves with their well-being. And Allah is the possessor of immense bounty. And we'll close with some reflections from the 99 Names of God, written and illustrated by Daniel Thomas Dyer. Signs of Al-Raqeeb. Al-Raqeeb. Muhammad ﷺ was very fond of cats, as was Abu Hurairah. And so you may have heard me share this before, but the root of Hurairah is hair. And in Arabic, hair is cat. So he was the father of the cats.
Hair is hair. Hair.
Hair. Okay. Thank you. All right. So Abu Hurairah was the lover of cats. So you see, look at this. Abu Hurairah loved cats before he became a Muslim. He did not change his name. He was still the cat man. The father of the cat men. And he was guaranteed paradise. How beautiful is that? So you don't have to change your name, folks. You can be the cat man and be among the best of Muslims.
There is a difference between Herra or Herra and Huraira. Huraira is the small or kitten.
Oh, okay.
The difference between.
So which one is it?
Herra is a male, Herra is a female, Huraira is a small kitten.
MashaAllah. So even I think this exaggeration of meaning that we were not aware of is so beautiful. Because it is all inclusive. The male cat, the female cat, the big cat, the kitten. All are being watched over, being cared for by someone guaranteed paradise. It is said that Abu Hurairah used to carry the cat in his cloak. So in my jalabiyah, I've got a cat here. And when I go to pray, my cat is on my prayer rug. And actually, it's funny because our cat, 99% of the time, comes and prays with us. She distracts my prayer sometimes because she likes to go around my legs, and it makes me crazy. But, because I feel that hair on my leg, and I'm trying to think about Allah. And then I quickly remember that my Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, loved cats, and Abu Hurairah loved cats, and I got to love that cat, even if it's disturbing my prayer. And the red said I had to love it too. So being a shepherd of my wife means I got to love the cat. Muhammad ﷺ was very fond of cats, and we can learn a great deal by watching them. Have you ever noticed how watchful they are, how calm and yet alert? I love it. They're in a meditative state. Eyes half closed. They're amazing animals. So calm. And our cat has the loudest purr of any cat I've ever known in my life. It actually scares people. But she's so happy. She's purr. And some of you who have been in our home, some of you who have been in our home, and she has jumped in your lap, you've heard the purr of this tiny little cat. She actually looks like a kitten, and yet she's 18 years old. It's a little Indian, yeah. It actually freaks people out. Some people who are not real familiar with cats or afraid of cats, you see, why is she making that loud noise?
Forget sleeping in without.
Even if their eyes are half closed, you can sense that they are aware of everything, and they'll be in that state. And some noise will happen outside, and they will look. Imagine if the noise of the world that was happening in our souls, we were that hypervigilant like the cat. Okay, be on guard spiritually.
I think we look crazy.
I'm being exaggerated, brother. But seriously, if inside ourselves we were like the cat, with our eyes, spiritual eyes, always half open. And the moment we saw something that could be a threat, and that's what the cat sees or hears, we will look and we will be on guard. We'll be watching our soul. You can sense that the cats are everywhere aware of everything. If you have ever seen one waiting at a mouse hole, how many have ever seen that? They have an intensity of practice. And yet, there's something relaxed. They have nothing else in the world but that mouse. Everything else is gone. That's one time you can stomp around, but they're not going to move. Imagine if the world was stomping around, but we will not be moved in our faith. Our eyes are on Allah.
Do you want to mention about when your clients come and they're sad?
Yes. If clients come and they're sad, she picks up on their sadness from the other end of the house and comes to the door and requests to comfort them. So I always have to ask people, are you allergic? And what's really funny is I had a client one time who was very allergic. But the client was so connected to the cat, it didn't matter. It wanted the cat to sit in its lap and comfort it. So the mother would come to get this client, and the poor kid would have to take allergy medicine. Mom was a doctor. It was quite funny. And she had to bring medicine when she came. And she would always fuss him out. Why did you do that? You know it bothers your allergies. But he said, when I'm crying and I'm talking to Brother Al-Raqeeb, the cat comforts me. So the intensity of concentration that the cat has, we want to have that intensity of concentration in the purification of our hearts. May Allah make it to be so, and make us to be among those people. We too can learn to be watchful and alert, especially to the needs of others. No one truly believes until he or she wants for his or her brother what he or she wants for themselves. In order to know what my brother or sister wants, I have to be watchful. Otherwise, I'm unaware. And the hadith says that the really watchful person is aware of the needs of their brother and sister before they ask, and they just go ahead and give. This is the watchfulness of a believer, and this is the importance of us developing watchfulness in our souls. How sad is it when we so need emotional availability and we go to someone who we love deeply and we want to pour ourselves out to them, and they say, oh, suck it up, get over yourself. Or they say something like, oh, well, it could be worse. A real watchful kind of person, right? May Allah help us. Perhaps all of us have done that at some point. But the watchful person is aware, even in reflective listening. You see, the watchful person is watching for the emotion of what that person is saying, not the words. They are watchful of that person's hal when they're speaking to them. And I know as a therapist, I am watchful of people's heartbeats. I watch the chest of my patients, male patients, to see if they're getting nervous. I'm watching to see if they become anxious at what I have said. We may have to scratch that. See, I wasn't watchful at that moment. We can also be alert to what is going on inside us. How hard is that? People come to me who have been so traumatized by life that they cannot feel. And as they begin to learn how to turn inwardly, they learn how to feel. And let me share with you, and I think all of you might know this, but just in case it's worthy of mentioning, for 7 years I did not cry, and I've been making up for it ever since. We can also be alert to what is going on inside us, our thoughts and feelings, so that we truly understand ourselves, see clearly, and make good decisions. This alertness is what is outside and inside is developed through muraqabah. Now, I want to see if anybody sees anything by looking at this and looking at this. What do you see, class?
The root word.
It's the root word. And what does mu on the front of the word mean?
The doer.
The doer. So the doer of watchfulness is the person who is the muraqabah. Some people criticize those who talk about muraqabah, and it's simply because they do not have a knowledge of Al-Raqeeb. And when they recognize that the intention of this is to encourage people to know this, the Al-Raqeeb, then they will have a shift in their spiritual thinking. So I will talk about muraqabah for a moment, inshallah. And if anyone has to go, we started very late today. I understand and I'm not offended. You certainly have permission if you need to go. Sit in a comfortable position and focus on your breath, its gentle rise and fall. One of the processes that we do to take people deeper into themselves as therapists is we do a process of breathing that tries to get them to the theta state of brain waves so that they can look deeper into themselves. They can have realizations about that which they forgot. Sit in a comfortable position and focus on your breath, its gentle rise and fall. And that's what I was talking about watching in my clients. After a little while, relax your shoulders. Let your hands lie still and become aware of everything in the room. Then watch your inner feelings. Are you calm or tense? Happy or sad? Don't worry. Just accept how you feel and hand those feelings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next, watch the thoughts passing through your mind. Be aware that you are not your thoughts. Thank God we're not our thoughts. Many people actually believe that they are their thoughts. So that if I think I'm bad, guess what? My reality is that I'm bad. If I think I'm ugly, my reality is that I am ugly. Someone with anorexia and bulimia thinks their thoughts say, I am huge. Meanwhile, they're a size 0. Watch the thoughts passing through your mind. Be aware that you are not your thoughts. They just pass through you. You can hand them over too. It is interesting that something so destructive as communism. How was communism achieved in Cuba? I should say Cuba. Say it correctly, Cuba. How was it achieved? Castro would go into classrooms, have this elaborate system of drapery over the ceiling and say to the students, ask God for candy. And they will ask God for candy, and they wouldn't get anything. He said, ask Castro for candy. He will pull the curtain and all the candy would fall. He said that I will make Cuba communism by changing the way people think. How watchful do we need to be of what we think? And when you are listening to things, messages from music, you are thinking what you are listening to subconsciously. If it is destructive and you love yourself, you will be ever watchful and you will not listen to that. Imagine listening to songs that say to hurt someone. That thought is inside of you. You are allowing that to enter into you. Eventually, let your mind sink into your heart, which is the peaceful eye watching over everything. And this is why in Islam, the intellect of the heart is the intellect with which we operate with, because this one is delusional. So delusional that I can present a thought to you and you buy it hook, line, and sinker just because he said it. Well, the sheikh said so and so. And then people buy it just because somebody said it. So for discussion, when have you had to be very alert and watchful?
When my children were teenagers.
Driving the car.
Oh, I thought you meant teenagers driving the car. Our son just totaled our car, so alhamdulillah is good.
When have you had to be watchful? What would each of you define as the most watchful moment of your life?
Being around the baby.
Being around a baby.
Yeah. Toddler near a swimming pool.
Now, I'll ask you a question that I don't want you to answer. When was the most watchful moment of your life regarding your soul? When you were as watchful over that baby, in the car, over the teenagers, of what you were thinking and what was in your heart. And that's where I'm inviting you to. I'm inviting you to develop that spiritual carefulness, that spiritual watchfulness that you had for a physical thing in the dunya, in the lowest of the low. Have you ever tried to listen to the world inside yourself? How hard is it for you to be quiet? How hard is it for you to sit and enjoy silence? I want to do an exercise with you today. I want you to have an experience. So I want to ask that we observe 15 seconds of silence. You can have your eyes open or closed. And when I sit down, the 15 seconds will begin.
Can we wait till the box is done?
Oh yes, let's get the box done, yes. That will definitely not create quiet. And as you are doing this, as you see here, I want you to work to think of nothing but Allah in this 15 seconds. And become aware of how many thoughts will enter into you in this 15 seconds. Just 15. And when I was doing some training in South Africa, we had to be quiet for 30, 45 minutes, an hour. And we used to sit and find a spot in the wall and become one with that spot. That nothing else existed in our being except that spot. So let's try 15 seconds of quietness. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You can come back now. What was that like for you?
I was thinking about all the things I had to do. I wasn't very quiet.
What that means is that you didn't get quiet. What else did that? But thank you, Maysoon, for sharing that. What did some of you experience?
Like prayer.
It was like prayer, relaxation. How? You got chills. Chills because you liked it, or because you were uncomfortable?
I liked it.
You liked it.
I like the silence.
Okay. What else? Did anybody else experience anything? Anybody? Dhikr. MashaAllah. How many of you liked what you experienced? Did anybody not like it? You can do that every day. How hard would it be? I have a little timer just to do 15 seconds of quiet. I have to have my quiet time. It's like I can't, obviously I'm speaking metaphorically, I cannot live without it. I have to have quiet. I love quiet. And it's interesting because it's part of my sort of authentic self. Because I had a nerdy saying when I was in junior high school that was, silence is golden in the library. And people made fun of me, said, Sykes, what's that saying you say? And I would say, silence is golden in the library. I loved libraries because in my day, there was no talking in a library. Today, going to the library is like going to a theater. There's so much going on, there's so much noise, it's not what it used to be. But to this day, silence is golden for me. It's like nuggets of gold. I invite you to be a watcher of how much silence you have in your life and become more aware of it. I want to ask you another question in the reflection piece. How did Al-Raqeeb protect Hagar or Hajar? No. It's just something to reflect on.
Well, he realized that she needed something to nourish her to be able to nourish
Ishmael.
So she was crying out to Allah, going back and forth between Safa and Marwa. So he was definitely watching over her.
And to this day, and for something like 5,000 years, people are reenacting Al-Raqeeb when they go to Hajj. They are going in the steps of Hajar. If only we really entered those steps and we were aware, she knew that when she went back and forth, that Allah was going to answer her prayer, that He was watching over her. Meditation and watchfulness, known as Muraqabah in Arabic, was practiced by Muhammad ﷺ and his companions after Salah. What benefits do you think it will bring to you?
Right after prayer?
Yes.
Do that right after prayer. Keep you in the moment. You don't have to lose it right away. So often you pray when you have like something on the stove or in between a commercial and you want to just get right back up and get into the hustle and bustle of things. And kind of remain at that prayer spot a little bit longer.
When I think of it, prayer is like dialing the phone. And then when you finish the prayer, you make the connection. And then this is where you need to make your dua.
Wow, beautifully said. Beautifully said. MashaAllah. You know, when, as many of you know, Nuran and I go every year to Pearls of the Quran. It's a conference in D.C. Usually on Labor Day weekend, but this year they changed it. But after we pray and we get up in the morning, we do often 20 minutes, 30 minutes, one time an hour, right, Nuran, of Muraqabah after we pray. And what you will notice as you learn this is that when people are uncomfortable in themselves, they cannot be still. So the person who is comfortable with themselves just sits and just praises Allah. But the person who becomes uncomfortable getting in touch with quietness in themselves, they're doing this. And you can see that they can't get there yet. So, alhamdulillah, hello, come in.
I just wanted to say happy birthday.
Thank you.
Because we love the I.S.L.A.M here, so next week my congregation will probably have something special for you.
Okay.
So we might invite y'all over at the
Thank you.
beginning of our service.
Okay.
To say hello and everything, but blessings, my brother.
Thank you.
To
Thank you.
say we love you, and just praying that you have so many more birthdays, and thank you for the really what you have brought to Rollins during these past years. I just wanted to say that publicly because you're loved. So we love having all of y'all as part of our community here.
We love you.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you so much.
Love you, sweetie.
So anyway, anyone have anything they'd like to share?
Should we go off camera?
He just blocks it out. Yeah, just blocks it out. Anyone want to share anything that you learned today, any realizations that you might have had? I'm sorry I can't see you, Nasser, through the thing. Let me see if I can pull up.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned something about muraqabah being controversial or
Yes.
something like that. Could you expound on it, please?
Sometimes when various tariqas, I'm going to use the word for communication, Sufi circles, people will make dhikr out loud in unison. And there are some ahadith that hint or say that it's not to be done in unison except at Eid. So there are some people that even say at Eid, people should not be doing the tasbih in unison. There are some people that have this fatwa. So that's why I was presenting that. So that somehow it seems that when the word muraqabah is mentioned, people will say, oh, they're Sufi. Like there's something wrong. The Prophet ﷺ didn't call himself a Sunni. He didn't call himself a Shia. He didn't call himself a Salafi. He didn't call himself any of those things. But somehow in the modern world practice of Islam, certain words, certain jargon, some people will frown upon it negatively out of ignorance. To me, if you see the word muraqabah and you know Al-Raqeeb, how can you not love this word? Yeah. Allahu Alam, Allah knows best. Yes, sister, please.
When we are in our therapy session and you make me breathe and go to a relaxed place, it's not the same thing.
It's very similar. It can be similar. It's different in the sense that what I'm doing at that time is I am helping a client go back to some maybe traumatic event so that they can reframe it.
So it's different.
It is different in that sense, yes. Yeah. But the first part, when I'm taking a client there, is very much like this, because I'm going from the crown of their head to the sole of their feet to get them in a relaxed state in order to be able to work on the soul. So absolutely the first part, when I'm having the clients to breathe, to raise their stomach and to let it fall, and then to go through the body and bring them to a state of relaxation, that is very Muraqabah-ish. Yeah. Yes, sister, please.
Is dhikr supposed to be done quietly?
Allah knows best, sister. There is. I have yet to find a fatwa that satisfies my soul in the understanding of that. So I'll just say Allah knows best. My best understanding is that and this is just what I've been told, because I just have not found a reliable, convincing argument yet, is that it was not done in unison. This is what I was taught at the time of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I'll say this that concerns me, and this, hear me, please, this is from me, not Quran or Sunnah. I have been in those circles, and it ceases to be muraqabah if you are showing off. So in those circles, I would notice sometimes that one person, they would get a little louder than the others. When I used to go to the masjid every morning for prayer, then there would be that person that would read the Quran so loud that it disturbed my muraqabah. Because I just wanted to focus on Allah, but all I could do was hear them reading out loud. So Allah knows best. If anyone has any proofs or can guide me to an argument that I feel is really well presented, I know for me, I do know that dhikr is one of the weapons of the believers, and I know that Allah said, if you remember me, I will remember you. And the Quran is called dhikr, so that you can't really be a Muslim and not have dhikr in your life. I mean, a knowledgeable Muslim, because it's all over the Quran. The word dhikr is...
I would say it's a little cultural also. The unison.
It is. I do believe that to be true. And so I, as you know, have always tried to separate that. So the way that I've kept myself safe is that I do not ask people to do it in unison, except the dhikr of Eid, which is, there are plenty of authentic ahadith about saying it so loud that you hear it in the marketplace. So that, you know, people might say, but you don't do it in unison. Well, I know as a musician that if I start saying subhanallah and everybody else is doing it but at a different time than I am, it seems to me, Allah knows best, and please forgive me, Allah, if I'm into myself here instead of Allah, because I don't like to do that, that would be confusion. So, you know, let's just try something for a moment. Everybody try to say subhanallah at a different time. Subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. Do you notice how we connect?
Yeah.
So it's even hard to demonstrate it. So if each of us were doing it out loud in the room and trying to make sure we didn't connect and synergize with the brother next to us, I think it would be very difficult. Allahu A'lam. Did you experience that? Did you notice that you were looking for a chord to connect to? And this is just what I've seen. This is my experience. Allah knows best. Please.
That's why, as I know, when you are praying, you have to have it inside. You cannot say it or utter it. You know, like sometimes when we are praying, some of the ladies beside or men, they say it with a little higher, and that confuses the ones beside.
Yes.
Like sometimes I don't know where I stopped, because I start hearing their voice and not mine anymore, and then I get out of the nice mood that I'm in.
Yeah.
So, and we
Lucky
are
for the
taught
sake
since
of-
we are young, you have it like inside. You never sirran, they call it. Never utter it or make your lips, because sometimes even without knowing, automatically you can little raise it little by little.
Yes. Well, now I'll share something with you that's also very interesting in terms of madhabs. When the Shafi'is, after the al-Fatiha, say Ameen, and children will try to see who can be the loudest. And I find this very disturbing. The Hanafi, Imam Hanafi said that when you say Ameen, you should not say it loud enough for the person next to you to be disturbed. And even though I was predominantly taught the Shafi madhab, school of thought, I am very inclined toward Hanafi when it comes, Imam Hanafi, to the Ameen. I actually get sort of disturbed, but people love it, and they think the louder it is, the better it is. And somehow for me, I find myself pulled off center, and I find it like my soul does not. Yes.
Yeah,
Even when we when we're praying behind an imam, and the person next to you is like
Repeating with him.
and I'm like just so thrown off center. But people do it all the time, especially when they say the guttural sounds. It's like
Or
yeah.
And what I think happens a lot of times is that people are really trying to concentrate.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to make sure that they don't think about something else besides their prayer. Allah knows best, but yes, very
the
good.
person next to him is trying to keep track.
Yes,
of where they're
but
at.
it throws me off even as an imam. If somebody behind me, so I'm saying Tahiyyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tahiyyabatu wa salamu alayk, and they are off on another place, and I'm like, I've got to then work harder because they're throwing me off, and I'm the one supposed to be leading the prayer, and I'm aware that they're ahead of me, and do I speed up, put it in high gear, or do I slow? What do I do? So it's very, it's a subject matter that really is worthy of me doing deeper research, because there's definitely got to be something out there to.
One of the fitness.
Yes, yeah. You, sister, and then you. Yeah.
So when we're praying with the imam and the imam, should we not practice? This question just came to me now. Should we not practice muraqabah then?
No, you can practice muraqabah.
The imam is,
yeah, he's carrying you. Yeah.
So we have to.
Yeah. I deem by Allah, sister, we should always be practicing muraqabah. Every single second, the astute believer is in muraqabah. They are aware of Al-Raqeeb. They're in love with Al-Raqeeb, the watcher. And they are watching. Julie.
I just wanted to make a comment because my vicar, especially with the kids, is loud. Well, I sing it through the house when I'm cleaning, all of them. And because when I was growing up, I would sing gospel songs with my, my mom when we were cleaning. And so I don't want to sing those specific things, but that mindset is still there for me. So, and plus it helps the children, they leave me alone to do my work or they join it. So I for me it sets an example. Yeah. We bring the spirit of Allah into our home and into each other smiling and everything. So I just thought it was, I just wanted to mention, for me it's loud at home. When I'm at the masjid on Friday, then I try to be very quiet because I have to keep concentrating because I lose my place.
Yeah.
I still get messed up with my prayers, so I don't want to lose my place. I forget.
I do dhikr at my piano, which is quite a dichotomy to many people because they will say it's haram, haram. The piano's haram, they will say. But because I know all these songs and they're all gospel songs, I have translated them into praise of Allah. And I will sit at my piano and do it and cry. I will get where I cannot sing because I'm crying. Imagine me doing that. But really, my wife often in the evening when I'm winding down and I'm praying and singing, she comes ready to pray Isha and I'm crying because I am remembering Allah on my own. So Allah knows best. I will say this to you, and I deem by Allah that this is safe. I don't know how you can ever be punished for praising Allah. How that could ever be considered bad or makruh unless you were showing off. Well, then you're not really doing it. That's your ego at work. Anyone else want to share? And I know that, yes, please, Nasser.
One interpretation, I don't recall by whom, because of an ayah in the Quran, the Quran of yes, if the Quran is being read, you must listen,
yes.
Pay attention. They use that when you are behind an imam and they are reading Quran. They're saying Al-Fatiha, which is Quran or surahs. You must not talk or even say, you listen instead of you saying Alhamdulillah. You kind of follow the imam by listening only because of that act.
Yes, yes.
Which makes a lot of sense to me when I share with some other people. They kind of find it hard to accept because we are used to, of course, say it sometimes now.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a culture thing or what.
But do you know, like, when the imam is like praying for someone, like after prayer, and you're making the prayer on Jummah, I've heard people next to me that are just like over and over and over and over and over again, inshallah, and he's praying. So it's either a cultural thing or people are taught different or something. But I was very used to that in growing up in the masjids in North Carolina, and then.
Well, see, one of the things now, and this is from the Sunnah, it's from the practice of the companions, is that when the Prophet ﷺ would make dua, they will say like, Ya Rabb, Ya Allah, Ya Latif, which they will be saying Ameen, is how I understand it. Yeah, but they are actually joining you in the dua. So when the Imam at the end of the khutbah says, may Allah to make us to be among this, and then say Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. This is and I don't know if there's any.
That's not Quran.
It's dua. That's what
This is dua, which is.
But was that what you were talking about?
Supplication or asking to bless us, to do this, to do this. You say like saying Ameen at the end. You can say Ya Allah or whatever. But
and that's what she was referring to, is the dua. So that's different
should
from.
be only at that time.
Yes.
But not while they're doing Quran, because you have to listen and absorb.
Yeah, and this is another thing. If you're playing the Quran in your house, you should not be talking. So you must hit the pause button if you have something to say. And what is really strange, I find, is that many people will listen to the Quran in their car and have want to have a full-on conversation with you. So I will say to people, look, either we listen to the Quran or we listen to each other, but we cannot talk while the Quran is going. And it's really amazing, because once you hear the adhan, and we really want to train ourselves to be watchful in this way, you should not talk. You're being called to what?
Pray.
To pray. That adhan is to prepare yourself for what you're about to do, for the standing, the qiyam Allah, that you're going to stand before Allah. So work on getting yourself so that you do not talk except la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, after hayya al-salah and hayya al-falah, la hawla wa la quwwata. That you can say. You are to repeat the adhan after the muadhin. So if you notice, some people, Allahu Akbar, they say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. This is the sunnah. But you should not be talking about anything else. And so what happens is what I see is that we talk as fast as we can. We try to finish our story because we're prepared to pray. Let me just tell you real quick. And then we go to prayer and we don't understand why we're not experiencing muraqabah, because we're not centered. We are thinking about our ego and what it is we want to say, and that is more important than preparing our ruh for that prayer. And so between the adhan and the iqamah, there should be no talking. And I'm guilty too. So make no mistake. Even I have to tell people, I shouldn't have to say there's no talking between the adhan and the iqamah. Because now I'm doing what I'm telling you not to do. But this is based on sound hadith. You are not supposed to talk after the adhan.
You should make a little placard.
Little placard, yes. Well, that didn't work, clearly. The first Jummah that we had for Eid at the convention center, the women had placards, please be quiet, and the women couldn't even hear my khutbah. Many of them complained, said, Imam Sykes, we were trying, we couldn't hear. But I said something in the khutbah. I said, please give respect to this Quran, this message, for the sake of Allah, not for me. I don't deserve that. I said this in the group. You had something, brother, yes?
I was going to say, at least I learned from someone that when you hear the adhan, you could say to yourself, marhaban bi dhikrillah, which means like hello to the remembrance of God. So,
and also you say the prayer after the adhan. You pray for wasila and fadila for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
There's a special dua.
Yeah, there's a dua that is praying for wasila and fadila for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you don't do it out loud. I hear people doing it out loud. It's sort of like you described to Manny earlier. They'll be like, and it's like, I'm trying to be quiet.
And they ate garlic before.
Oh yes, that one's the best. Anybody else want to share anything? I don't want anyone to feel left out. I love you all. Yes, please, Sister Ann.
What you just said now, my eldest grandson, because when we read at home the prayer, so it's like the whisper, like you're reading it when you're by yourself. So when little kids see it, so my eldest grandson, when he started,
yes,
he would
yes.
do that.
Yes,
Our
Yeah.
little brother
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and our children, we and it's beautiful because they would go get the prayer rug out and they'd be like,
We kind of be like looking up
Yes.
at my dad and going.
yeah. I think they wanted to get some affirmations from Dad or some validation. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. I love you all for the sake of Allah. As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. And again, thank you for your prayers, most importantly, and for gifts and for being with me last night. It was truly a blessing. Thank you so much. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Happy real birthday.